progress. All right, so let's go through. Okay, let's go through this multiple choice question. All right. So Jeffrey, how do you feel about this AP style multiple choice question overall? Confusing or like easy?
It was a bit confusing because, like, I mean, it was my first time doing learning, so
Okay. Okay, understand. So let's see, Ria, how about you? Feel confused?
It was kind of confusing.
Have you tried AP style MCQ before?
Not really.
So first time, right? Okay, so that makes sense. All right, Sunny, confusing?
Yeah, it's my first time, so
Okay.
it's complicated.
Makes sense. All right. So now let's take a look of this so-called AP style MCQ. All right. It comes in set, right? So the first set is question 1 to 4, and then it gives us the time. It's the image from Las Castas, all right? And if we don't know where this Las Castas, don't panic, all right? We know the era, okay, the time is 1748. So 1748, that is what? European colonization era, right? It's not even the 7 Years' War yet. So we focus on the colonization. And when we pinpoint this big idea is colonization, then we remind ourselves, what do we know about colonization? Well, I do know it's focused on 5 major European powers, right? Along the west coastline of Europe continent, right? From north to south, that would be Netherlands, France, and Spain, Portugal. Oh, I skipped Britain, right? So these 5. And then if you look at this term, Las Castas, that reminds you of Spanish, right? So I will assume that's Spanish. Okay, so far that's all I know. And then this is a painting. So we call this one a non-text, okay, non-textual source. Non-textual could be a painting, or like this one, it's a table, okay? Sometimes it could be a map, all right? So non-text source, we treat it like, text source. How? This is how we treat it like a text source. So first thing first, we focus on the center, because the center is what the painter or the artist try to emphasize, right? And when we are writing, we emphasize our idea in our topic sentence. All right. So the center of this painting would be our topic sentence in writing, right? So what do I see? Well, I see a white man, a dark-skinned woman, could be Indian, could be African, and they have children. So children is not as white as the dad. Okay, so this is a family. How do I know? This should not be a slave, because look at her clothes. You see that? This is not a slave's outfit, right? So this should be a painting of a family, right? So paired with this colonization and Spanish, recall we talk about that Spain encouraged their subjects to go to America, right? And financially sponsored by the government, right? And that system is called encomienda, right? So whoever willing to go to America, you will have fully financial support by your government. On top of that, the land will be given to you, granted to you by the monarch, right? So your job is to manage this land and utilize the land to produce crops and even to mine the nature resource and ship it back to Europe, right? That's the condition, right? The catch for this encomienda system. Okay, and then under this system, most likely we mentioned that it will be young, able men from Spain that travel across the ocean to go to America, right? So the monarch granted the right, okay, for interracial marriage. We call that part. So this painting reminds me of that big idea: mercantilism, encomienda, interracial marriage, and that eventually lead to the social caste system, right? So on top of it is the peninsulary and then would be the Creole. Creole is the Europeans born in America. That's Creole. And Peninsulares is Europeans born in Europe. All right. And then we have Mestizo. After Creole, we have Mestizo. So Mestizo is what? Is the mixed blood descendants from a European and a Indian, right? So European Indian could be, so this could be Mestizo, all right? And mulattoes, that's Europeans married Africans, all right? That their children will be mulattoes, right? Okay, so that's all we can refresh based on the information we see, right? And whatever is behind this center, you see that's a window, okay? And you see that's just a clear sky with trees, right? So it's kind of like, you know, plantation lifestyle. All right, now let's see the question. Question 1 says, this painting is best seen as evidence for which of the following, right? So we're gonna refer to this painting because the question asks us to do so, right? So what evidence? Well, I know it's, you know, in Cambianda, okay? Now let's do POE. So for option A, the Spanish crown sanctioned the existence of social and racial hierarchy within its empire. So far, give yourself a hint, right? Note to yourself. When you examine the options, you focus on the keywords, right? But what is a keyword? Well, keyword is either a noun or an adjective. We don't really care about adverb. We don't care about verb, okay? We care about noun and adjective because they're solid idea. So here I say the Spanish, that kind of echo this Las Castas, right? Crown, we don't see the crown, but let's keep going. Sanction the existence of social and racial, that's the adjective, right? Hierarchies, that's the nouns, right? Within its empire. Okay. So now we know this kind of family would not appear in Spain, right? So it's the colony. So its empire makes sense. Spanish makes sense, right? Social and racial hierarchy. So we do have white, non-white, mixed blood that fit into social, racial hierarchy. And overall, entire option A also echo the historical knowledge we know. So far, I cannot cross out option A because I don't have any keyword wrong. So I will keep it. And option B goes, the formation, okay, of haciendas. Okay, haciendas, what is haciendas? Haciendas is you enforce the people to work for you, that's a hacienda. But we don't see any enforced labor in this painting. All we see is a family get together. Is it? So hacienda, I don't see it. Within Spanish and Portuguese colonies. So Spanish, Portuguese colonies, we probably can have a question mark here, maybe. But this hacienda, I don't see it. Because in this painting, we don't have forced labor, right? And see, the tension, do we see any tension? Tension is a noun, right? Do we see any tension here? Not at all, right? So the tension, I already have a big question mark between the ruling and subordinate classes. Do we have ruling and subordinate? I don't see that. You see? So tension, ruling and subordinate classes. Classes I can understand, but it's not between ruling and subordinate. It's a family, especially it's the children, right? Of the Spanish caste system. So this could be, but this tension is not right. D, the depending of span, mines. Do you see any mine in the painting? Not at all, right? So you cross it out. So in this case, I will go with A because A, I do not see any keywords I can cross out. Does that make sense? Jeffrey, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right? Did you choose A?
I chose C, but then I forgot that you have to look to make sure everything is in there because I was like maybe like was it the colored woman was looking at at the white guy, like the Spanish European, with like a little bit more, but stern look. She was like, eh. So that's why.
Okay, so pay attention to the painting, right? Especially if you can you can see this, the women's dress is not a slave's dress, right? It's very sophisticated, right? Handmade, right? So note to yourself, when we do POE, we examine the keyword. And what is keyword? Focus on nouns and adjectives, because nouns and adjectives both provide us with a solid idea. All right. And then if you find a keyword wrong, cross out the entire option, because partially wrong equals to total wrong. Okay. As soon as you see one keyword wrong, you cross this option out. All right. Okay, that's number one. So same logic, let's work on number two. The painting shown above best indicate which are the following scenes. Well, again, encomienda, right? A social caste system, right? So let's examine the options. A, European states were enriched by their discovery. Enriched. It's European states, but I know this is not states, this is a colony, right? Enriched by their discovery of the Americas and their control of world trade. Option A is historically true, right? But it does not echo this painting at all, because I don't see European states, I see a family. Also enriched, maybe, yeah, they look rich, right? But their discovery of America and their control of world trade, I don't see world trade anywhere, right? So no trade at all in this painting. So states, trade, cross it out. That makes sense? And then option B goes, and the ruling and elite class, perhaps this family looks pretty wealthy, right? So it could be the ruling and elite classes. All right, so let's keep that for now. We're able to afford the hiring of artists, okay, to glorify their wealth and power. I don't see the artists here, but it can be implied, right? So I don't know. Let me keep B for now, all right? And then C, the Native American Micta system. Micta system refers to what? Inca, right? Inca Empire. Now we are in the colonization, right? So it at best, you can say Europeans, especially Spanish, they adopt this Micta system. That's understandable, but it's not the Native Americans Micta system workers. Were soon replaced by other forms of labor. Again, I don't see any labor in this painting, not at all. Even in the background, outside the window, I only see clear sky and trees. That's it. So we don't have labor, you see. And then D, governments establish oppressive racial policies to control various ethnic groups. Okay, so governments, we don't have that, but let's keep going. Establish oppressive racial policies. Racial policies echo this painting because we have white, non-white, mixed blood. Racial policy. And we talk about that. The racial policy is, enable the government, the mother state to much easier control this society, right? Various ethnic groups. Also, various ethnic groups can be supported with the painting. So now we have two options, either B or D. In this case, right, you compare between B and D, and only on the keywords, all right? So B, the subject would be ruling class, all right? And the object would be artists, all right? And then it's the painting, right? To show off their wealth and power. And D is governments, that echoes this encomienda system. Also, echoes this social caste system, right? And then racial policies, that is directly supported by the painting, racial policy, right? And then various ethnic groups is directly supported by the painting. So in this case, if I want to take a guess, I would definitely go with D. Because these keywords, I only miss one, that's government. All right. But option B, we miss what? Hiring of artists, wealth and power. You see? So Option D, we have two keywords, two key terms directly supported by the painting. Does that make sense to you, Ria?
Yeah.
Did you choose D for 2?
I picked B.
Boy. Okay, now you know why is dog, not boy.
Yeah.
Right, because boy, we don't have direct evidence to support this option. But option D, we do have direct evidence. Why? Racial policies. I see racial. I see various ethnic groups. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when I read D, I didn't think it was right because it said governments were controlling various ethnic groups, and if they were controlling them, then like I don't think the family would be together since they're two different races.
That's interracial marriage. Without interracial marriage, there's no social caste, right? It's either European versus everyone else. But the social caste is peninsulars, right? And then Creole, and then Mestizo, right? So we do have mixed blood offsprings, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so this kind of question, when you see non-text, just try to locate which option has direct evidence from the painting. In this case, I do see various ethnic groups, and especially the question is focused on themes, right? Themes is indicate the theme, and the theme in this time span still practice social caste system. Make sense? All right, so that's our question 2. Keep going. We have question 3. Which of the following is a direct result of the themes? Okay, result of the theme. So if you miss 2, you probably miss 3. Okay, because we need to identify the theme first, right? It's the encomienda system lead to this social caste system, right? So social caste system, direct result of the theme, result of the theme. Oh, that's the cause, right? Direct result. Okay. So the theme is the cause, and we want to find effect, right, of the image above in the early colonial era. We have social caste system, right? That's all we know. So A, Spain's settlement of the Americas greatly enriched itself and promoted other Europeans to follow. So far, historically true, right? But do we see that the interracial marriage, the social caste system, and is the result of this other Europeans to follow? We don't have this other Europeans to follow. This one is not a cause effect. B, racial and social hierarchy. Okay, very good, because that echoes the painting, right? Racial and social hierarchy were a fundamental part of Catholic colonies. So what is Catholic colony? Spanish colony, right? So far, the key terms, racial and social hierarchy. Yep, we have that in the painting, right? And then part of this Catholic colonies. Yeah, that's Spanish. So B, so far so good. I don't have any key terms. I believe it's wrong, so I keep it. And C is a treaties were formed with Native Americans to settle and disputes. Do we see any treaty here? No. And even though it's a cause effect, right? This social caste system does not result in any treaties. So option C, treaty, is wrong right away. Does that make sense? And option D, Native Americans. Yeah, we do have that. Fought extensively over territory. This is a pretty peaceful family, right? So interracial marriage. In this case, we do not have Native Americans fought extensively over territory. It's not about territory. It's a social caste system. That makes sense? So that make option B the best choice. Sunny, does that make sense now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. All right, that's number 3. And number 4, which of the following statements best explain the impact of the European discovery of the Americas? So now we're gonna see impact, right? So that would be consequences, right? Result, cause, effect. Okay. Now, question 4. which of the following statements best explain the impact European discovery of the America? So question 4 is not asking us to refer back to this painting, right? So it's based on our knowledge. So in the multiple choice question, you have this kind of question sometimes. It's knowledge-based question. So it's you don't have to refer to the source. Okay, so ask yourself the impact of European discovery of the Americas. They're a whole bunch, right? So based on our knowledge, let's see which one is the best. A, the enrichment and expansion of the Inca Empire following their connection with the Spanish. No. We know the impact of Europeans' discovery of the America is what? At first is Colombian trade, right? Colombian exchange. That time, initially, yeah, it brings diversity to the Indians. But later, soon we learned that their population being wiped out due to the disease, smallpox, right? So in this case, A, not really, because it's too positive. Because enrichment and expansion of the Inca Empire, nope. All right, so cross out A. And then B, the establishment of trade post empires. Yes, we do have that. That's what, Netherlands, right? In the Great Lakes region by the French. The first part is correct, but the second part is wrong because French did not establish trade post empire. French build a trading relationship with Indians, right? So if we change French into Netherlands, then yes, option B is correct, right? C, widespread population changes in the New and Old World due to the Columbian exchange. Okay, this one, we know the impact. If initially we talk about a Columbian exchange, that's fine. And Columbian exchange definitely have the population change. Remember we talked about the potato being imported back to Europe, right? And potato become the main dish in European society, right? And that lead to the population of Europe surged up, right? And then in America, at first, yes, various diet options, right? That actually help to improve the nutrition in America, right? For Native Americans. But later on, the disease, why about 90%, right, of the Indians' total population. So widespread population change. So change can be increase or decrease, right? In this case, increase for Europe, decrease for America, right? In the New and Old World, that's correct, right? And due to this Columbian exchange. So option C, we have no keyword wrong, so keep it. D, so this one wrong, right? The expansion of the Angloquin territory at the expense of the Iroquois Confederacy. Okay, Angloquin is what? English. All right, so the expansion of the English territory at the expense of the Iroquois Confederacy? No, that would be French. Remember Chamberlain? He attacked Iroquois because they're in the way. He would not let Chamberlain's men pass to Mississippi River to trade for beaver. Remember? So D again, this one is wrong because it's not, English is not the responsible party for Iroquois attack, right? So in this case, C. All right, so we just solve set 1 based on a non-textual source. All right, now let's move on to test set 2. Set 2, 5 to 8. I would check the year first. So the fundamental constitutions of Carolina, March 1st, 1669. Okay, so 1669, that's long before America claimed independence, right? And we have constitutions of Carolina. Then we gotta ask ourselves, what is that? It started to search your database in your brain, right? So I remember during colonial era, certain colonies, they enjoyed their autonomy, right? Not only from their mother country, but also from each other, right? And we mentioned that the first Continental Congress meeting was the very first time we see all these colonies, they joined together, right? And they team up. It was never before, but now they had a common enemy that would be the British, right, government. Okay, so we understand, okay, so during the colonial era, each colony are considered as like, you can view them as like a nation state, because their scale is larger than city states, right? So you can view them as like a nation state. And people living within the same colony, they share the same identity. They call themselves Carolinian, right? Virginian, right? Okay, so in this case, Carolina government had their own constitution. That's understandable. Makes sense? Okay. And now, normally I don't read the source. I will work on the question right away. But since this is not the exam, let's do the source first. So our sovereign Lord, the King, having out of his royal grace and bounty, granted unto us the province of Carolina. Okay, so the first sentence is kind of like, show gratitude to the monarch, right? Thank you for the land. And then with all the royalties, properties, jurisdictions, and privilege of a county platon, as large and ample as the county platon of Durham, no idea what that is, with other great privileges. So far it's trying to glorify the mercy of the monarch, right? So the monarch granted to this land, and this land is so abundant with everything here, right? With other great privilege for the better settlement of the government of the said place, and establishing the interest of the lords, proprietors, with equality and without confusion. Okay, so we have equality without confusion. So everything is like, written down, okay, black and white. And that the government of this province may be made most agreeable to the monarch under which we live and of which this province is a part. Okay, so it's talking about the government of this province, right? May be made most agreeable to the monarchy, right? So the government is like, established by the colonies themselves. Otherwise, why do you need the monarch to agree, right? If it's a royal colony, the monarch would appoint the governor, right? Okay, and that we may avoid erecting a numerous democracy. Avoid erecting a numerous democracy with the lords and the proprietors of the province aforesaid have agreed to this following form of government. Okay, so it's the formation of the government in Carolina, right? To be the perpetually established amongst us, unto which we do oblige ourselves, our heirs and successors in the most binding ways that can be devised. Okay, so basically this constitution is to justify the formation of the Carolinian government, right? And the first part of the passage simply just try to show gratitude to the monarch. Okay, so number 5, let's see. Number 5 goes, which of the following developments is best reflected by the excerpt above, right? So what is development anyway? Development, plural. So Jeffrey, what is development?
It's basically like says something that may have occurred after this happened, or like wait, no, well, it's in the name, something that was developed, basically, like how do I put it? So for example, if I were like discontent with this class, for example, which I'm not, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That would be a development that happened after a series of events. So and the events may yeah.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yes. So what happened here is when you see development is what? It's a change. It's a cause effect. All right. So when you see development, this word in multiple choice questions equals to something changed, and it's a cause effect, because development is not there before and is happening now, right? So it's a change due to some kind of factor. So it's a cause effect, and it could focus on asking the cause or the effect, right? So if it's only development, it's the effect. That's the change, right? So what kind of change best reflect by the excerpt above? So we have local government being formed, right? And they still show gratitude to their monarch. That's all we know. Okay, so let's see. A, Growing colonial disconnected with England? No, we don't see disconnected with England because we do see agreeable to the monarchy. Means they still care about the monarch's opinion, right? So we cross out A based on disconnected with England. And then B, so since this part is wrong, you don't even need to read the rest of option A. Right? Just for fun, let's read it. Emphasis on religious tolerance. Do we have that? No. Religious tolerance. No, it's talking about the abundant nature resource on this land, right? And then equality without confusion, but it's not religious tolerance, right? It could be social class, right? So A, wrong and wrong. Okay. B, the growing impact of Enlightenment ideals on government. Look at the time, Enlightenment idea. Yes, the Enlightenment movement already took place in Europe, right? And here we see we have equal. Okay, where is that? Equality without confusion, right? And we have a government, even our monarch will agree, right? And then we may avoid erecting a numerous democracy, right? So we won't violate it. And the lord and proprietors of this province aforesaid have agreed to this following form of government. So what kind of form of government is that? Ensure everybody's equal, right? So that this equality already support the Enlightenment idea. All right, so keep it for now. And then next one, see? The tendency of most colonies to reject British authority. Do we have a reject British authority? No. It actually shows gratitude right here, right? So C, reject British authority, wrong. D, a rejection of English common law. We don't have any rejection at all in this passage, right? So in that case, only B makes sense because B can be supported by this passage. Makes sense? Because the question indicates by the excerpt, so you cannot refer back to the excerpt, right? And number 6, it goes, which of the following figures would most likely agree with the procedures outlined in the excerpt above? Well, since we nail 5B, right, and that would be Enlightenment ideals. So whoever support Enlightenment ideals will support this excerpt, right? Which one is Enlightenment individual? Well, Henry VIII, no, that's the 6th wife student, right? King, no, King not supporting the Enlightenment, right? John Winthrop, no, he was a governor in the colony. So Rousseau is one of the European Enlightenment thinker, all right? So if you want the names of a European Enlightenment thinker, yesterday we introduced John Locke, remember? John Locke. The 2 treatises of government, right? John Locke. And his idea strongly influenced Thomas Jefferson when Thomas Jefferson composed the Declaration of Independence, right? Who else we need to know? Rousseau. Okay, Rousseau, he promoted the idea of social contract. He basically kind of mirroring John Locke's idea. Remember John Locke proposed that there is a contract between the people and the government, right? So it is the government's job to protect people, right? And provide for people. If the government failed, people can replace the government with something else, right? And this idea is indicated in his 2 treatises of the government. But later on, Rousseau actually come up with this term called social contract. So social contract basically is like reflecting John Locke's idea. Just, use a more obvious term to make this idea concrete. That's Rousseau. Okay, so when you see Rousseau, he's the one come up with this social contract idea, right? Who else? We have Voltaire, right? So Voltaire is the one proposed that separation of church and state. Voltaire, he believed that if you look back in history, all the conflicts is due to this power abuse, right? So the church abused their power and then try to manipulate the government, right? And later on, the politics, the government, right? They use religion as a means to oppress people. Henry VIII, right? So Voltaire believed only when the separation of church and state took place can Europe expect a peaceful society. That's Voltaire. So he advocated the concept of separation of church and state. That's him, right? That's 3, right? There's one more. Montesquieu. Do we know him? Montesquieu. Montesquieu, he is the one proposed the separation of power, not church and state, right? Separation of power, meaning what? Government should have 3 branches. That's his idea. Legislative, executive, and judicial, right? So he believed that if we separate the power in the following, right? So legislative, they only have the power to create laws. And when the law is created, that's it. Their job is done, right? Who has the power to exercise the law? Executive branch, right? So in this case, the legislative branch will not purposely design any laws that to benefit, right, him or herself, right? So separation of power. And the third branch would be judiciary. So judiciary is there to defend the law, right? Because the law is created in the legislative branch, and these congressman or parliament member, they represent the people. So that laws represent a people's desire, wish, right? So judiciary branch must defend the law, okay, and interpret the law, right? So these 4 Enlightenment thinker will be good enough for you to take AP US history. So Rousseau, John Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, all right? And this is how I remember what they did. John Locke, second, 2 treaties of government, right? Government's job is to protect and provide for the people. So when enemy comes, lock the door, protect your people. And Rousseau, social contract. And Voltaire, separation of church and power, right? Church and states, right? So if you use your index finger and middle finger, you pose a letter V, you must separate these 2 fingers, right? So separation of church and state, right? And Montesquieu, this gentleman, his name has 3 syllables, right? So 3 branches of government. Does that help you to remember them? It helped me anyway. So these 4 Enlightenment thinkers, okay, all of them actually have a strong influence upon Americans' Declaration of Independence and later on Constitution. Is the American Constitution created a federalism government, right? Based on Montesquieu's idea, 3 branches, right? And then Russell social contract, yeah, Constitution granted the legislative branch the power to impeach the president, right? So social contract. If the government failed, well, you can remove the government, right, and replace it with whoever you believe in, right? So that's number 6. Number 7. So this one is related to the passage, right? We know it's Enlightenment ideals, right? Equal, right? Not confusing, right? And then based on the Enlightenment idea, now we need to locate which one is Enlightenment thinker. Okay. So question 6, it's a combination of deciphering the source plus knowledge base, right? 7, what was the common theme for many of the earlier colonies as they sought to establish themselves? What is common theme? Well, big idea, right? For many of the early colonies as they sought to establish themselves. Well, if it's in the North, it's what? The ideology, right, of religious freedom, equality, democracy. In the South, it's all about money, right? So in this case, let's see. A, most colonies failed in their first years due to repeated Indian attack. So far, this part is correct, but due to repeated Indian attacks, not necessarily though. Like Jamestown, Virginia, it was because of what? Their lack of supply, right? They came to Virginia intended to discover gold. So this first arrivals in Virginia, they only equipped themselves with chemical equipment to detect gold, right? So they did not bring enough food, okay, not to mention the crops, anything, right? And then up in the north, Massachusetts, right? Their failed is not because of Indian attack, it's because of the famine and the disease and the cold winter, right? And some of the colonists, yes, they're being attacked by Indians, but not all of them, right? Not most of them. So 7A, wrong. It's not due to repeated Indian attacks. This is just one reason, one among many other reasons, right? B, most were successful despite high degrees of variability in form and function. So most were successful. Is that true based on our knowledge? Yes, because common theme for many of the early colonies, right? Yeah, they established 13 altogether, right? So most were successful, yes, despite the high degree of variability in forms and function, right? That's true. The North and South, they're very different, right? So option B so far, no key terms wrong. C, despite being persecuted in England, many religion groups continue to be persecuted one another. No, only Massachusetts, right? Intolerate other, non-Protestants, right? But in the South, they don't really care. And remember in Maryland, we have the Toleration Act, right? Lord Baltimore, right? He actually came out with this Toleration Act, practice this religious toleration, right? So C is wrong. So many religious groups persecute one another. This is wrong. D, many colonies took an aggressive stance on expanding at the expense of the French and Indians. No. Not until the 7 Years' War, right? So many colonies, no. This is already wrong, right? Aggressive stance on expanding at the expense of this French and Indians, wrong. So number 7, best option would be B. All right. Number 8, what was the view of most colonies regarding religion? Okay, North ideally should be religious freedom, right? Religion freedom, but not necessarily. But Maryland did, right? And the South, they don't really care. They care about money, right? So number 8, let's see. A, due to past persecution, most favored religious toleration. That's true. That's true, right? Especially when we go down south, they don't really care about what religion you practice, right? They just care if you're a landlord or not. All right, so A, let's keep it. Okay. And then B, it goes, most colonies limited the role of religion in daily, no. Limited the role of religion in daily life, no. The church tried to popularize the belief system, right? Remember the first Great Awakening, right? That's the church realized people started to lose faith in the church because the church clergy, they're underqualified, right? So they started to build schools and educate, this qualified clergies, right? So it's not like they limited the role of religion in daily life. No, they actually encourage the role, all right? So wrong. C, colonies took a harsh stance against vital Protestant denomination. No, Protestants, they themselves are Protestant already. Okay, among which they are the Puritan branch. That makes sense. So there's not like harsh stance against. No. And then D, many of the British colonists remained strict Anglican. No. British colonies, they are prosecuted or hunted down by this Anglicans, right? Established by Henry VIII. That's why they first left England and went to Netherlands, right? And from Netherlands, a group of people hop on Mayflower and went to America, right? So they are not like, try to remain Anglican adherents. Nope. So D, this one is wrong. Strict Anglican. Nope. So in that case, number 8A is the best. So far, so good. So this set, we do have question 5, 6, right? And then so 5 and 6, we must refer back to the excerpt, right? But 7 and 8 is basically based on our common sense, not common sense, our knowledge, right? Towards this era. Okay, so once again, one set of multiple choice questions, you have like, some questions is related to the excerpt, some questions is just based on your knowledge, right? So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, think about it. Do you have any questions? 5 to 8. Questions? No?
Not really.
Good. Okay. So that means it makes sense, right? So 9 to 12. 9 to 12, again, it's a tactual source, right? And the year, March forward to 1788. Okay. 1788, this year reminds you of what, Ria?
Um,
1788.
is it like the end of the war?
Yes, you're not wrong. But the war ended in 1781 and peace treaty signed in 83. So now we're in 88.
Like the two political parties are formed?
Not yet. Okay, that's not until the conflicts between Hamilton and Jefferson, when George Washington was the president, right? You're so close. Somewhere between the peace treaty and George Washington's presidency. What happened before George Washington became the first president? Give you a hint, Constitution. Ring the bell, Constitution?
Does it have to do with the Articles of Confederation?
They want to amend the Article of Constitution of our Confederation, right? But as a result, they believe it's easier to write a constitution to replace this Article of Confederation. Because if you really want to amend this Article of Confederation, it's gonna be a lot of work. Just like it's easier to build a new house than remodel it sometimes, right? Okay, so 1788 is what? It's the Constitution already being created, right? Remember the Constitution Convention held in Philadelphia in 1787, right? And that year, we only have 2 states signed and ratified Constitution, among which Delaware is the first one, actually. All right. And then they need more signatures, right, in order to ratify it. But that time is when you see James Madison, right, and Alexander Hamilton, along with John Jay. They started to write fabulous paper, try to promote the idea of the benefit of a big centralized government. Remember? That's the year, 1788. So eventually, this fathers of Constitution, okay, Madison and Hamilton and Jay, they together managed to have 9 more states signed for this Constitution, right? And 1788, Constitution was finally ratified. All right, so that's the timeline. So 1788, first thing remind us about it is Constitution finally got ratified, right? Okay, let's try not to read the excerpt and work on the question right away. See if we can do that. Number 9, it goes, which of the following characterizations best summarize the author's attitude? Then we have to, in the excerpt above. All right, let's go back. Who's the author? Madison. So Madison, his attitude is obvious, right? Constitution is necessary. Okay, so let's see. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices, check and balance, should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But we have a but, right? What is government itself? But the greatest of all reflections on human nature. Okay, so he posed two questions, right? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. Oh, that's big idea, right? If men were angel, then no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. So he was trying to say human beings are not angels, right? So in framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself, right? So because we are not angels, okay, it's men control men, right? Then we cannot empower this government. Otherwise, how do you expect the government to operate, right? A dependence on the people is, no doubt, the primary control on the government. But experience has taught mankind the necessity of auxiliary precautions. All right. So basically, James Madison is trying to promote the idea that we do need a strong central government. Why? Because we are not angels, right? So a strong central government is necessary. All right. But also, at the same time, we expect the central government will regulate itself, okay, from falling into this tyrannical government, right? Okay, so number 9 now, your choice. Let's see. Jeffrey, what do you say for number 9? Did you get number 9 right?
I think I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay, could you explain why?
Because let's put so
Mm,
basically, like you said, right? This is like it's sort of like it's not like, yeah, it's a sort of like a reflection, I guess.
mhm,
It's like basically talking about how like what James Madison himself is wanting the government to, well, like what he's concerned about, which is option A, a
mm,
healthy skepticism towards government and human nature, which all matches because one, you have skepticism, which is basically him questioning like the government, right? We have towards government, well, yeah, government is mentioned. Human nature, yes, that's mentioned. Abuse of power, men governing men, abuse of power. So A is like the option that I picked.
Ah, now you see, right? So healthy skepticism towards government, yes, because we do have question mark twice, right? And we do have to say abuse, right? Abuse of power. So every key terms in option A are indeed supported by the excerpt. That makes sense? And then number 10, which of the following figures would most likely disagree? So Madison is a federalist, right? So whoever is anti-federalist would disagree with him, right? And Madison is promoting the idea of enlightenment, right? Because check and balance, right? So that's enlightenment idea, right? So check and balance basically is the separation of power. So who proposed the separation of power? Ria, remember? Separation of power. So government must have three branches, which enlightenment thinker.
What is Montesquieu?
Yes. Okay, because his name has 3 syllables. Okay. All right. So as long as you see enlightenment thinker, fabulous, okay, you cross it out because we won't disagree, right? So enlightenment thinker A, John Locke. B, George Washington. He agreed with the big government, right? Remember how he sided with Alexander Hamilton twice, right? C, Montesquieu. Of course, he's the one who promoted this idea of check and balance, right? King George III. No, he was the one that, defeated by the colonies, right? So definitely D, right? 11. Which of the following movement most likely inspired the ideas espoused in the quote above? So it's what? Which movement inspired the idea in the quote above? So who inspired the idea? Is that right? That should be obvious, right? So it is talking about check and balance already, right? So that definitely is enlightenment right here. See, right? We did talk about enlightenment yesterday, right? And we don't talk about John Locke, but we introduced the idea that prevalent in Europe. Okay, so 11C, not first Great Awakening. That's from the church's viewpoint, right? Benign neglect. No, that's at the initial first century in the colonies. Abolitionism. And what is abolitionism? Sunny, do we know what is abolitionism?
No, I don't know.
Thank you. Okay. Abolitionism is the idea to abolish slavery. Abolish slavery. Okay. So Enlightenment movement did not really, try to promote the slaves' right. It's challenged the government's power, not speaking for the slaves. Not yet. You're gonna wait till like 1840s, right? 12. Which of the following trends best represented the overall message of the author? So what are the following trends? So become like, a common practice. That's a trend, right? Best represent the overall message of the author. So the author's message is what? We are no angels. We need a government to control over people. So in this case, the government must possess power. So a big government is necessary, right? So what is the trend? Okay, let's see. A, Americans sought a stronger yet controlled federal government. So far, so good. True, right? Following the failure of the Articles of Confederation. True, right? So far, everything is true. Keep A. B, most members of the Constitutional Convention, were in agreement on how to reform the government. No, only 2 members initially signed for the Constitution, right? So this one is not most members agreements. See, women took women. We have a long way to go for women. Women's right. Women took a primary role in organized economic opposition to British policies, enactment and enforcement by existing the right to boycott. No, that's prior to the revolution. Now we're talking about after, right? Timeline was wrong. D, Americans embraced a greater sense of freedom and liberty after experiencing the increasingly authoritative practice of the British colonies following the French and Indian War. Okay, Americans embraced a greater sense of freedom and liberty after. Embrace a greater sense of no, they're being encroached of their rights, right? So that is not right. Okay, so Americans did not embrace a greater sense of freedom and liberty. They just want the good old days back. They did not even want liberty or independence at the beginning, right? So in this case, number 12, A is the best option. All right. Are we getting warm about this AP style multiple choice question? Next, we have 1790. 1790. Okay, George Washington was in the office already, right? Judith Murray on the equality of the sexes. Women started to fight for their rights, right? But long way to go. Okay, the first wave of women's movement in America would be 1840 to 1920. 8 decades, right? So here we have the women's right. Okay, speak for all women, because we have this equality of the sexes, right? So which is the overall message and sentiments of the author? Well, we need to go back, but we can predict is what? Equal right for women, right? So may we not trace its source in the difference of education and continued advantages? Question. Well, it be said that The judgment of a male of 2 years old is more sage than that of a female of the same age. Okay, so equality already there, right? I believe the reverse is generally observed to be true. But from that period, what partiality? How is not fair, right? Not impartial. Okay, so how is it? How is the one exalted and the other one depressed? Okay, by the contrary modes of education which are adopted. So Judith Murray mainly focus on what education, right? The one is taught to aspire and the other is early confined and limited. So this society believe we need to inspire the boys and limit the girls, right? At length arrive at womanhood, the uncultivated fair one feels a void, which the employment allotted her are by no means capable of filling, right? So she mainly argue towards the topic that women should enjoy the same right as men in terms of education, all right? So based on that, let's see, 13. Marie believes women are intellectually less capable. No, she just promote the idea women should be allowed with the same right to education, right? And without education, women feel this void, but that does not equal to women are less intellectual, okay, in comparison to men. So B, Murray believes women are unfairly treated in the society. Did you choose B? If you choose wrong, B sounds pretty appealing, right? So let's keep it. So she believes women are unfairly treated in the society. Maybe, okay, question mark. So I cannot cross it out yet. C, Marie believes women are only inferior because they are not afforded the same education. Good one. So C also okay, right? Keep it. D, Marie believes women are intellectually superior. No, she did not say that. She just said women is denied of the chance of education. That is why women feel void, but she does not say, okay, women is smarter than men. She did not say that, right? So you can cross out D. Now, back to you, between B and C. Jeffrey, what would you choose?
B is way more broad than C, and in the passage, like you just said, it deliberately mentions education, and it says how one is exalted and the other is depressed by the contrary modes of education which are adopted, right? So that means that it has to be C because
B is no broader than C. I agree, but B is also more subjective, right? Do we know she really believes that women are unfairly treated in society? She only talked about education. Maybe on the other aspect, she probably didn't have this kind of feeling, right? So we don't know. But C, once again, this is AP style, right? Do we have evidence to back up option C? Right here. Education, right? Only inferior because they are not afforded, right? And that's right here. They feel void, right? Right? Okay, so not afford and only inferior. Inferior to men because women cannot secure a profession, right? As a career. So C, both key terms are supported by the evidence in the passage. That makes sense. So 13, even though B is broader, but it's also subjective. We don't know. She only said in education is not fair, but how about the other perspective? We don't know, right? So 14, which are the following best embodies the trend of late 18th century? That would be late, that's 17, at least 70, 80, 80. Ongoing, right? Female desire for the educational opportunity. Okay. Well, she already spoke for a woman right there here, right? So for 14, let's see. matrimonial lineage. No. It's education. Education. They want to be they want to receive the equal opportunity, right? So Republican motherhood. This is the one. We did not talk about that. Okay, Republican motherhood. What does that mean? It's the social ideology mainly shaped by men. Okay, so men promote this idea of Republican motherhood. So women try to fight for the right to be educated, right? And men say, no, God created two genders for a reason. Men physically stronger, so men will take care of what the outside job, right? Not domestic. So men would go working and then bring home bread, right? While women, your job is to take care of the family and educate the well qualified American citizen for your next generation, right? So this concept is called Republican motherhood. So you are a mother, but not just to your children. Your motherhood will contribute to this Republican as a whole. So you are the mother of this country because the next generation rely on you, the mother, to set example. I mean, that's called Republican motherhood, right? So this one is C. If you missed this one, that's okay because we did not talk about it. But now we do know, right? Female suffrage, no, that's not until 1848 when this Seneca Falls Convention was held and women started to fight for abolish slavery and then women's right to vote. And women finally win the right to vote in 1920. 1920. All right. And then 15, which of the following figures would most likely oppose the view espoused in the quote above? Well, whoever is not supporting women's right, right? So let's see. Do you know who is Abigail Adams? She's the wife of John Adams. Okay, the wife of the second American president. She is a pretty activist, a women's right fighter. So she agreed. Frederick Douglass, also minority, right? Fight for the right for a minority. So she would agree. George Washington, question mark. John Adams, okay, between these two, which one would oppose? George Washington, it's more like, open-minded to possibility, right? He married, I forget, Martha, okay. Martha, his wife, Martha, was actually a widow and with children, and he married her anyway, and they did not have children together. So George Washington does not have an heir, but he does have stepdaughters, right? So between George Washington and John Adams, I will go with John Adams because John Adams is more like, old-fashioned, okay, believe in, how God created these two genders, right? So C and D, take a wild guess, then I will choose D over C, George Washington, right? So that's 15. 16. Which of the following was not a common method in which women contributed to the American independence movement? Okay, not a common method how women contribute. Okay, so during the Revolutionary War, what do women do to help this war? Women, first one, took care of the family, right? So make sure men up in the battlefield, they didn't have to worry about their family. Also women, okay, some of them actually serve in the military, but not like the soldiers, to cook, to do the laundry for the soldiers. All right. Also women serve as like a strong support. Okay, and when necessary, women would arm themselves, all right, and defend their village, their community, right? So that's basically what women did during the war, right? Boycotting British goods. No, that's before the war, right? Camp followers who provided laundry, cooking, and nursing services. They did that. Okay, they did that. See, running business while men were at war. They also did that because men they're at war, right? So women back home, not only they take care of the family, and some of this family business become the women's responsibility, and acting as spinning bees. No, not spinning bees. All right. So between B and C, once again, decision. Between B and C, B camp followers who provide. So this one is camp followers. That means they recruit more women. No, they do that voluntarily, not through recruiting. And C is correct because running business while men were at war. And that explains why at the end of the war, women will fight for more women's right because women realize one thing. Women can also be in business. See, during the war, you guys, men, they were all in the front line, right? And the business still needed to be taken care of, right? And who did that? Women did. And did we fail? No, we made it, right? So why you deny women from participating in business? We prove our ability to do so, right? So C makes sense because it will lead to the later development of women's rights movement, right? B, if you don't say camp followers, if you say serve or like help out, that's correct, right? So this one is C. Okay, last set. Okay, non-tactile. What is that? This one, it goes flag the nations that the ships belongs to. Oh, okay. So here we have vertical axis is the number count, right? So how many ships these nations respectively owned, right? And then horizontal axis, we have the time period, right? So if you look at that, different color indicates different nation. Which one is the highest on top? Blue and green, right? So it's either blue, green, 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 and blue and blue, right? So who are they? Blue, USA, green, France. Okay. So USA is blue before this year, before 1651. Okay. USA, their ships, as I know, very limited, right? Somewhere between 0 and 100,000. But starting from this point on, 1661, American ships grows big time. But later on being replaced by France, which time? Green's France, right? So here, 1701. Okay. So let's see. That's all we know so far. 17, it goes. Which of the following best explains the trend regarding Portuguese ship following 1790? Portuguese, what color is that? Here. Orange, right? So 1790, that's here. Ongoing. Oh, they expanded, right? In comparison to themselves, they grow big time, right? So that's what we can tell from this graph. Okay. So let's see if we have that kind of answer, right? A, the success of tobacco economy increased the demand for slaves. 1790, no. The success of tobacco economy increased the demand for slaves. Possible, let's keep it for now. B, coffee import increased following the lifting of trade barriers by the British following the American Revolution. The timeline sounds pretty appealing, but it's not the lifting of trade barrier by British that increased this coffee import, right? It's the competition between these European states. So they each try to increase the number of the total ships so they can occupy a bigger market share, right? See, the cotton gin greatly increased the demand for slaves. Oh, this one is correct, all right? Because cotton gin increase what? Increase the production of cotton because we have machine to replace human labor. and make this harvest, not harvest, this weaving from cotton to cloth easier, right? So cost of production decrease, that means profit increase. So in that case, more landowners decided to join this cotton industry, right? And that will lead to the demand for slaves increase, okay? And that explains the ship's number increase after 1790, right? And it has nothing to do with United States independence, right? It's just the profit of cotton industry increase, all right? So C, historically correct, right? So in this case, we still have B and C. Let's keep both. For no, B is wrong. We have A and C. Let's keep both. D, Portuguese settlers came in mass seeking asylum from the Latin American Revolution. 1790, no, not yet. Latin American Revolution is 1830. So the timeline is wrong, all right? So between A and C, success of tobacco economy increased the demand for slaves. So you're gonna ask yourself, in this time period, what's the main cash crop? It's gonna be cotton, because tobacco was back to the colonial era, right? So in this case, C, the best. 18. Which of the following best explains the trend regarding British ships from 1760 to 1800? 1760 to 1800. Okay, so let's take a look. 1750, 60. So 1760, that's here, to 1800. 1800, this 3, right? So we cannot focus on this 3. Okay, and which country are asking? British. All right, so British, what color? British. Great Britain, gray, right? So the first decade, Britain has this many boats. Second decade, slightly above here. And then third decades, oh, big growth, right? To 700,000, right? So indicates what? Britain's navy, or at least ships, expanded big time within 2 decades, right? Okay, now we need to figure out which of the following best explain the trend. Okay, why British boat, the number of a British boat all of a sudden in merely 2 decades increased big time. What happened here? 1760, 1800. 1760, 1800. What happened? Did we talk about that? 1800. Yeah, that's after the Independence War, right? After the Independence War, and then the Britain cut off the trade between America and West India for sugar, and constantly harass American commercial boat. And at the same time, Britain already started the first wave of industrialization. So their manufacturing industry started to thrive, and they started to do exportation. All right, so that's the background of this time period. So A, British relations were strained immediately following the American Revolution, but grew following neutrality during the French Revolution. Okay, that's historically correct, right? So British relations were strained immediately. Okay, that's true, following the American Revolution. And does that explain why the number of British boats increased, but grew following neutrality during the French Revolution, right? Because America claimed neutrality, and we haven't covered that part yet. Okay, so if you missed this one, that's fine. So what happened was French Revolution took over in 1789. In 1789, America already adopt and practice Constitution and elect the very first president, George Washington, right? And then when French Revolution reached its height, okay, in 1791, they decided to overthrow their king, King Louis XVI, once for all, and that provoked the rest of the European states, right? So we have this alliance of Europe fighting against France, right? And that's the time French society reach out to America for help, because America during your revolution, don't forget, we sided with you, right? After the Saratoga victory, our king actually financially supports you and even lent you our navy, right? But American that time, under George Washington's leadership, he believed that America was not ready. America was not ready to engage with another war because America was during this, infancy stage, newborn country, very vulnerable. If America somehow sided with the French, that means America is declared war against the rest of Europe, right? So neutrality become the main theme to American politics, right? So that way, America's trade with Europe started to decrease. Okay, that enabled the British merchants to occupy the market from America. So this one is correct. All right. If you missed that one, it's okay because we did not cover it. 19. Which of the following best explain the trend regarding French ship in the period from 1760 to 1800? Once again, French. What color is it? Green, right? And this time is 1760 to 1800, right? 1760, 60. So just no, one more decade here. And France is blue, still top, right? Top. Okay. So French Navy is kind of, leading the rest of Europe. So in this case, let's see. 8, trade with France grew following the American Revolution due to positive relations until the French Revolution and Reign of Terror. That's true. Hey. All right. We talk about the alliance between America and France, right? Actually, there are 2 treaties signed, okay, between America and France in 1778. One treaty is Treaty of Alliance. Through this treaty, France agreed to financially and militarily support America in their Revolutionary War, right? Second treaty is called Treaty of Amity. That is France wanted America to promise, okay, if America did win the war, right, America would view France as their trading partner and will give this a privilege, okay, kind of, good trade terms to France. Okay, so France decided to aid America, not only because they wanted to seize the opportunity to kind of, revenge upon Britain because they just lost the 7 Years' War to Britain, right? So that's one motivation. The other motivation is, what if America really won the war, right? So America become independent. And don't forget, America is sitting on the land with abundant nature resource, right? And France, of course, want to seize the opportunity to build up this trade relationship with America. So that's the Treaty of Amity, right? So French government decided to aid America in the Revolutionary War, mainly is for its own personal interest. Okay, but to American, there is a kind of, heroic gesture. And that's why the relationship between America and France was so good. On America's 100th birthday, okay, 1876, the Statue of Liberty sitting in New York, right, was actually a gift from France to America to celebrate the first centennial birthday of America, all right? So 1908. 20. Which of the following best explains the economic trend of northern colony and states in the mid to late 18th century? Mid to late 1818, that's a 17, right? Mid, that would be 50. To late, that at least is 90, right? So let's just say to the 90s, all right? And it's the northern colony. All right, that crossed the era of revolution, right? So North economy is what? Commerce and manufacture, right? So mainly commerce, right? So 20, let's see, A, an increased focus on cotton. No, cotton is the South, right? An increase, B, an increased focus on commerce and fishing. That's true. When we talk about North, okay, their weather not so ideal for large scale plantation because during winter there's no way you can plant. Okay, heavy snow. So the North developed its own economic system based on fishing and commerce, right? So commerce, not cash crop, not food crop, but manufactured goods, right? So B is correct. What's wrong with C? A rapid increase in textile production and manufacturing following 1780s. No. Textile production, they still rely on importation from Europe, okay? And then the North and South formed an interdependent American system. No. Remember, they're only like, you know, teaming up when they have common enemies. All right. So North and South, they constantly criticize, judge each other, right? And try to compete against each other economically, right? So 20 is B. All right. So that's our first AP style multiple choice questions. All right. Take 1 minute to think about it. Do you have any questions for this unit 1 multiple choice question? Unit 3.
I have a question for 16.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
thought the question was asking like what method in which women contributed was not common. So then I put D because they probably didn't do that as much. So like
Oh, it's a not. Okay, so they're all what women do, right? But not a common method. Running business. Well, so in this case, yeah, you're right. Sorry for that. Contribute to the American independence movement. All right, so we want something is not common. That means they do that, but not like, you know, a common theme, right? Well, in that case, C still is not common. They did that. Okay, they did that, but not common. Most women, they would just tend to their family. If they have family business, they will take care of the family business. They did that, okay, but not common. Then you're right. It's not common. It's not what they do. All right.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ria. Any other questions? Nope. All right. So in that case, yesterday we stopped here, right? The formation of Constitution. All right. So Constitution 3 years consecutively, we need to remember is 87, 88, and 89, right? So between 87 and 88, you see this founding fathers, in particular 3 figures, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. Okay, they wrote this Federalist paper, right? Try to promote the benefit of a strong centralized government, right? And with their efforts, especially James Madison, right, they managed to ratify Constitution in 88, all right? And that granted Madison the title of Father of Constitution, right? And then finally put into use in 1789. And then we move on to George Washington's administration, right? And then we finish this part is Hamilton's financial policy, right? And the third financial policy right here, the national bank, it's the reason why we have American political party system, right? And the political party system, their difference is not about the bank. It's about how to interpret Constitution, all right? Who recall which founding father support the idea of loosely interpret? Loosely. Which one? Hamilton or Jefferson? Loosely.
Hamilton.
Yes, right? His argument is Constitution is created by human, right? So creator above created, right? And that makes Jefferson the strict interpretation supporter, right? So Thomas Jefferson go ahead and founded his political party called Democratic Republican. And Hamilton, along with John Adams, they established the Federalist Party, right? So Democratic Republican will be the modern days Democrats, and Federalist Party will be modern days Republican, all right? We'll talk about the history of political party later, right? Now, the organization of government follow this Enlightenment thinkers idea, right? So check and balance means what? You need to separate power within the government. If the government is controlling all the power in making laws and exercise laws and interpret laws, then the people stood no chance, right, to defend themselves, right? So we cannot separate them into three different branches, right? So these three branches, executive branch represent the government, legislative branch represent the people, judiciary branch represent the Constitution, right? The difference is legislative branch is the most important branch among these three, according to Constitution, right? Article 1, there are like, pages to describe legislative branches, power, their rights, all right? And then there are almost 2 pages to describe executive branches' right and power. And there is only 1 paragraph to describe judiciary branch, okay, their power and rights, right? So according to this founding fathers, legislative branch is the most important branch within the government. Why? Because this branch represents the people. And the representatives, they were public voted, all right? So people vote their representative to sit in the office to speak for people, right? So laws created based on people's desire, right? And then it's the government's power to exercise the law, right? Why that is a power? Isn't law being created? That's it. We're gonna follow the law no matter what. So why is this exercise the law considered as a power in the executive branch? Ria?
Because
law
wait,
is
can you-
already my question was, law is already created, right? And that's it. How you practice it is not a power, right? You're more like an administrative, not like executive. So why is that exercise of law considered as a power and also a very important power to executive branch?
maybe the executive branch can the executive branch has a power to determine if people should follow it or not.
No, the executive branch does not have that power. Once the law is created, the executive branch can veto it. Okay, can veto it, all right? But if the veto fails, right, and the law actually, being ratified, and that's it, everybody gonna follow the same law. So why this exercise the law become a power, important power to executive branch? Well, tricky question, right? Here's why. All right. Law definitely is created by the legislative branch, no doubt. Okay. But law is just a, in general standard rules. All right. But how we're going to carry it out, it's up to executive branch. Let me give an example. Right. So the legislative branch can come up with a law setting the legal drinking age, right? What is the legal drinking age now in America? 21, right? Okay, so 21. So 21 is the legal age to drink, okay? Now it's up to the executive branch how they're going to carry out this law. They can come up with policies and regulations. Policies and regulations, right? So policies and regulations, what? They could have this policy saying that how are we going to secure the law, right? So make sure no individual under age 21, okay, violated the law and, consume alcohol. So in this case, we have at least two players, right? The individual, him or herself, and the provider, right? The supplier could be the liquor store, could be convenience store, right? Could be a supermarket, right? So the law will then designed, okay, towards these two players, right? So if underage drinking being reported, right? What's the punishment? So the executive branch can decide the punishment. It's not the legislative branch. The legislative branch can only, set the law, but the punishment is up to the executive branch now. All right. So punishment for this consumer, underage consumer, and the punishment to the shop. That makes sense. So law is just general standard, but underneath that, the details, right? The regulation, like you must present your ID to prove that you're above 21 years old. That's regulation. Okay. And if you use fake ID, that would be a crime. That's not just violating the policy, it's a crime, right? So all these details is determined by the executive branch. That makes them executive, okay? Not administrator only, right? Okay, and judiciary branch is there to defend constitution, right? So this check and balance is what each branch has the power over the other ones, right? So if you look at the arrow, okay, so point from executive branch, point down to legislative, that means the executive branch can check on legislative branch in the following, right? So even though legislative branch is the institution to create laws, right? But the executive branch can also propose laws. Okay, so proposed laws is not a monopolized right to the legislative branch, right? So if people's wish is not heard in this legislative branch, don't worry, you still have executive branch to back you up. Okay, they can propose laws, right? But most important power they have over the legislative branch would be the veto power. Okay, the biggest weapon the executive branch has is the right to veto. All right. So yeah, legislative branch, you can make the law, okay? But the president possesses the power to veto it, right? So if the president believes this law will not benefit the nation as a whole, the president can refuse to sign and veto back, right? And also they can call special session of Congress, make appointments to federal press, and negotiate foreign treaties. Okay, those are all executive branch's power over legislative. Okay, that make this legislative pretty vulnerable, right? But don't worry, legislative branch can also check back. That's called balance, right? So you check on me, I can check on you. So balance, all right? And legislative branch, their biggest weapon is impeachment. Impeachment, all right? So if the president somehow provoke the Congress, the Congress will micro examine the president's action and try to like a pinpoint whatever a particular action or decision or behavior is violating the Constitution. As long as the president's action violates the Constitution, and the legislative branch can impeach the president. All right. And the second most important power the legislative branch possesses is appropriates money. It's what we call the power of wallet. Power of wallet. Right. So legislative branch, they determine on the taxation. You pay federal tax and your state tax, right? So federal tax, what's the percentage? How the taxation system works? It's up to the legislative branch, right? And the taxation money goes directly to the legislative branch, of course, in the national bank, the federal bank, right? But who has the power to determine how to utilize this revenue, tax revenue? Is the legislative branch, all right? So annually they will have their, annual budget meeting, and then decided, education, we need to dole out like 10 billion, and then healthcare 100 billion. Okay, so they do that annually. So even the president of the United States, if the president need money to carry out a policy, all right, or a project, the president must appeal to the Congress and ask for budget. All right, remember Trump's wall? The Congress refused to finance that, right? So that's between these two branch, all right, check and balance. All right, now let's see. Executive versus judicial, okay. So the biggest power executive branch has over judicial branch is all the federal judges are appointed by the president, all right, all of them. Altogether, we have 9 federal judges, okay, in Supreme Court, okay? So 9 Supreme Court judges, they're all appointed by the president, right? Also, the executive branch can grant pardons to federal offenders. So federal offenders means what? This criminal committed the crime. It does not belong to any state government's jurisdiction, right? Could be like, Ponzi scandal, right? So the victims is like, everywhere across our 50 states, right? So in this case, FBI kick in, right? Federal policemen, right? So FBI kick in and arrest this criminal, okay? And the federal court, okay, sentence this criminal to life in jail, life in prison, right? But even the federal court made this verdict, right? This ruling, but the president can pardon. The president can pardon. So once the president pardoned this criminal, all right, it overthrown the ruling of the federal court, right? So that's the power executive branch has over the judiciary branch. And the judiciary branch can check back, okay, this power did not exist at the very beginning. It did not even indicate in the original constitution, right? So basically, executive branch can check upon judicial branch, and the judicial branch cannot balance back. This power did not exist, all right? Same thing between these two branch, legislative and judicial, right? So legislative can create lower federal courts, right? And that would help the legislative branch to somehow, seize certain power from the federal court, and then can impeach and remove judge. Why? Because once the judge, federal judge, are appointed by the president, right? They serve for lifetime. That's what we call tenure. You probably have tenure professor as in your school, meaning that once you secure your tenure, that means even your principal cannot fire you. All right, that's the meaning of tenure, right? So the judges at the Supreme Court, they serve for a lifetime. Some ways you can remove this judge, okay? First is the judge resigned on his or her own, okay? Because they want to retire, could be. The other way is, this judge passed away, okay? And the other option is impeachment, right? So if a judge started to show sign of corruption, okay, then the legislative branch, again, they can propose that we want to impeach this judge. So let's start it with this investigation stage. And once we have evidence, let's have a vote, okay? Do we want to impeach this judge or not? All right, so that's the legislative branch's power over judiciary branch, all right? Again, impeachment, the biggest power in legislative branch, right? And earlier year, the judiciary branch did not have this power to check on legislative. What power? Unconstitutional. You see, that's the only power judiciary branch has. Declare executive action unconstitutional or declare acts of Congress unconstitutional. So the biggest weapon today judiciary branch has is to declare something unconstitutional, because judiciary branch is there to defend the Constitution, right? So even Congress already vote yes on an act, a law, and the president signed for it and it's ratified, right? But wait a minute, we have a final step this law must go through is the judicial branch. So if the judicial branch examine the law that are created and voted in the legislative branch and ratified by the president, and the judge at the Supreme Court say, wait a second, this law violates the Constitution principle, then the judicial branch can declare that this law is unconstitutional. By declaring so, the law will be void right away. That's the judiciary branch power. Okay, but this power did not exist at first until anybody knows about this Supreme Court case, Marbury v. Madison. The Marbury v. Madison.
Wait,
I
wait,
kind of know it.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, what is it? Marbury v. Madison. Very
Isn't-
famous. Mhm.
I think it's when like before Madison got into office, I think Adams wanted to like pass a law about all the cabinet members being Federalists, and then I think he told Marbury to do it, and then Madison found out, and then I don't know, it's something like that.
Yeah, the case itself is not the point. The point is the ruling. All right. So long story short, okay, John Adams, the last night in White House, he made this midnight appointment, right? Tried to appoint as many federalists into federal office as possible, all right? Especially in judicial branch, because judicial branch, if you can have your federal judge on your side and they serve tenure, then you can somehow check upon Jefferson. Jefferson was a Democratic Republican Party, right? And Adams, Federalists, right? So in this case, Adams actually did, he appointed like 34, if I remember right, right? 34 Federalists. And he handed this appointment documents to his Secretary of State. All right. So Secretary of State, remember, a member of this cabinet and in charge of domestic issue, right? And that person was John Marshall. So John Marshall was supposed to deliver all appointment letter to the Federalists, right? But you know what happened was John Marshall not only was the Secretary of State, he was also just being appointed as the Chief Judge of Supreme Court by John Adams.
Justice.
Right.
Justice. Right?
Hmm?
Chief Justice. Was it? I remember them saying that was somebody saying that was he was the Chief Justice.
He was, yeah, Chief Judge at the Supreme Court, right? Tenure, right? And the reason Adams appointed John Marshall was because Marshall, first of all, was the Secretary of State in Adams, cabinet, right? So they have the same ideology. And second was what? Marshall actually is the cousin of Jefferson. Marshall and Jefferson, they're related, they're family, they're cousins, but they had different ideology, different belief. So these two founding fathers, they could not get along with each other. Okay. So to Adams, that's perfect candidate, right? So appointed Marshall into Supreme Court as the chief judge that could check upon Jefferson, all right? Supervise Jefferson's action. And then so you can imagine how busy Marshall would be, right? He served two positions that time. Secretary of State still active, right? And already appointed to the federal government, right? Federal court, right? And even worse is what? The chief judge of Supreme Court was the person who will be in charge of this inauguration ceremony, right? So it was John Marshall that present Thomas Jefferson the Bible and invite Jefferson to take his oath, right? That he would defend the Constitution, right? During his presidency, right? So this two cousins, right? disapprove of each other, but they had to present themselves in front of the public anyway. So John Marshall was way too busy. So he kind of asked his brother to do so, to deliver the letter, but his brother forgot, all right? So next morning after the inauguration, Jefferson and Madison, okay, walk into the White House to the Oval Office, right? And then Madison was appointed to the Secretary of State to Jefferson's administration, right? So Madison looked at the desk and he found this, stack of envelopes, and the recipients, every single one, Federalists. Okay, so he figured out what's going on, all right? Appointed by the previous president, right? So now it's James Madison's job to deliver these appointments, right? And then Madison was like, what should I do, Mr. Jefferson, Mr. President, right? And Jefferson is like, destroy those appointments. So they actually burned it, all right? So these appointees, they never received this official document. So they could not assume their position. So most of them just, I don't really care. I don't need a job anyway, all right? It's just a title. But among which William Marbury, he really cared, because it's an honor to work in the federal government. He himself was a wealthy merchant already, but he just wanted the honor, the title. So he demanded his position, his appointment from James Madison, because Madison is now the new Secretary of State, right? And Madison talked to Jefferson. Jefferson said, ignore him. Okay. So Marbury, in the end, sued Madison to the Supreme Court. All right. That's the case called Marbury v. Madison. All right. And then who was the chief judge at the Supreme Court at that time? Marshall, right? And Marshall realized, oops, I screwed up, right? I was supposed to deliver the letter to Marbury, but I gave it to my brother and my brother forgot, okay? But anyway, so he's the chief judge now, right? And he knew exactly this case goes beyond just, an appointment. It's a political issue now. Why? If he ruled in favor of Marbury, then he would declare his stance that he sided with Federalists, right? Vice versa, if he ruled in favor of Madison, that means what? He kind of just support Democratic Republican Party, right? And for a chief judge at Supreme Court, you don't want to side with any political party. You want to remain impartial. That makes sense. So it's a dilemma to Marshall. So Marshall had no choice but to, summon subpoena, right? So kind of, summon Madison to the court and explain why he withheld this appointment from Marbury, right? So this, subpoena make Jefferson super angry. It's like, who you think you are? You subpoena my Secretary of State, right? So Jefferson actually shut down Supreme Court for 2 terms. That's 6 months. So that actually gave Marshall plenty of time to really think about how he was going to rule over this case, right? So eventually the ruling goes like that. Marshall said, by logic, Marbury, you have every right to claim the position that appointed by the former president when he was still in the office, right? So your appointment is legal, okay? It's legal, no doubt. So at this point, Marbury was like, yes, right? But John Marshall come up with, however, Supreme Court cannot handle this case because we do not have jurisdiction over this case. The nature of the case does not fit into our power given by Constitution. But Marbury sued Madison directly to Supreme Court based on a judiciary review, okay, that created by legislative branch a year before, right? So with this act, legislative branch actually qualified this federal appointment case, okay, fitting to the jurisdiction of Supreme Court because it's a federal appointment, right? But Marshall said, no. Constitution does not grant us the jurisdiction over this case. The nature of the case is not within our jurisdiction. So Marbury you need to find other court. We cannot rule over your case. All right. Because the Judiciary Act passed in the legislative branch, that act itself was unconstitutional. So this term unconstitutional was introduced to American society for the first time, unconstitutional. So by this ruling, Marbury will not be considered as a winner over this case, right? Madison maybe may look like now, yeah, I'm off the hook, right? But who is the final winner in this case? John Marshall, because American system goes like that. Supreme Court's rule, okay? The verdict in Supreme Court automatically become law, automatically, because Supreme Court represent Constitution, you see? So John Marshall already ruled, right? Legislative branch, even though you are in charge of creating law, but when the law you created is violating Constitution, it's our job to defend Constitution, right? So now I declare that act unconstitutional. Thus, this act should be void right away. So through this ruling, the Supreme Court secured the power to declare the law unconstitutional, right? And they also can declare president's behavior or policy or decision unconstitutional. All right. So this Supreme Court case, the biggest winner is John Marshall. He secured the most important power for judiciary branch to declare something unconstitutional. All right. So before this case, judiciary branch possessed no real power. Remember who was the first chief judge in Supreme Court in the judiciary branch, the Supreme Court? John Jay, right? It was John Jay, right here. No, it's not in the cabinet, but John Jay was appointed by Washington, right, as the chief judge at Supreme Court. And you know what? John Jay could enjoy this position for lifetime, but he actually resigned because he said, what's the point? I have no power. In this government, I have no power over the other two branch. There's no action in this Supreme Court. So he resigned and he went for the election and became the governor of New York. And later on, John Adams tried to invite him back. And John Jay said, no. Being the governor is more fun than the chief judge at the Supreme Court, right? But John Marshall made sure the Supreme Court is no longer just, a symbol, okay? But actually possess real power, right? That's Marbury v. Madison, all right? So with that case, let's conclude George Washington's administration, right? He was in office for 2 terms, 8 years total. But note to yourself, that time Constitution did not limit presidency to 2 terms. So if George Washington wanted, he could serve for 3rd and 4th and 5th. Okay, if he wanted, he probably would make it because he was still very popular, right? But he retired on his own willing because he said if a country has the same ruler forever, it's a curse to the country, right? We want new blood to prevent, stagnation, to prevent this, old-fashioned, and to prevent this corruption. So he voluntarily retired after his 2nd term, right? And his decision kind of set the example for the president to come. So you will see John Adams, he lost his 2nd term, that's the exception, right? But after that, Jefferson, super popular president, Madison and Monroe, these 3, 3rd, 4th, and 5th presidents, they're all very popular, but they all served 2 terms and retired. Jefferson started this pattern, and he said, great man like Washington only served 8 years. Who am I to compare with Washington, right? I cannot serve more years in the office than Washington, all right? So Washington, 8 years, we summarize in 8 key points, all right? So his administration, this is all domestic policies. So the first one he ratified is Judiciary Act of 1789, okay? So through this Judiciary Act, he ratified the president ratified the act, right? Without the president's signature, the act is not ratified, it's not, legal. And so this 1789, important year, that's the year the Constitution become active and being viewed as the highest standard of American law. All right, the Constitution. Okay, and then second is Indian Intercourse Acts in 1790. So this act is what George Washington. Now it's your job to determine how America would interact with the Indians. Remember the proclamation of 1763? That's British government preserved the land they claimed from France after 7 Years' War, right? For Indians that provoke the colonists' anger, right, towards the mother country. Now you have your independence, but the Indian issue is still there, right? So George Washington kind of like, follow British logic. So this Intercourse Acts in 1790 established the Great Plains as the Indian reservation. Okay, so the land is reserved for Indians only. Americans cannot step foot into this land. And if Americans somehow get lost and wander into this Indian reserve land, if something bad happened to this individual, the Constitution cannot protect you because you are in their preserved land and they are self-governing, they're autonomous from America, right? That's at first, right? Now not anymore. Third is what? Residence Act of 1790. So Philadelphia as capital. So George Washington, 8 years, right, as president, never stepped foot into White House. No, he inaugurated himself in New York and he worked in Philadelphia, right? Then this Bank Act of 1791 is the North American Bank as the first private bank. Okay, don't get confused with this bank with the Hamilton's National Bank. That's different. Hamilton proposed national bank to regulate money market, all right, and to issue government bonds, right? But this North America Bank was the very first private bank, all right? So you can establish your own private bank if you want to, as long as you follow the Bank Act. That's the law to regulate commercial bank, right? So with this first private bank, America's economy could grow, right? Because bank has this money multiplier effect. If you take econ, then you come to this concept. Anyway, so through banking system, the money circulation, okay, in the market will multiply, right? Anyway, so this Bank Act aid the development of American economy. Number 5, Coinage Act of 1792. Okay, so by 1792, America finally have the unified currency. All right, so their banknote, legal banknote or legal bank tender, right? And now, since we have like legal tender and it's paper money, okay, and coins, so it's gonna have a facility to create, to print, to make this money. So that Coinage Act established the federal government's facility to print and make money in Philadelphia, right? So Coinage Act kind of unified, okay, the currency in America, right? And then we have Fugitive Slave Act of 1793. Okay, when you talk about this act, you need to pair with year, right? Because we have another Fugitive Slave Act coming up in 1850, right? So 1793, this Fugitive Slave Act is a law that indicates that the Southern slave owners, your slaves, first of all, slavery is not prohibited by the Constitution, right? So you own your slaves, that become your property, right? Your personal property. So by constitution, by law, the government must protect your property, right? It says so in Declaration of Independence, right? Right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's your property, right? So if your slaves escaped and managed to arrive in the North, all right? North is a free state, right? But still, it's your personal property. By law, you still own these slaves, right? Doesn't matter where he or she is. So Fugitive Slave Act indicates that the government has the responsibility to assist slave owners to relocate the escaped slaves. All right, but the problem of this act was the power to exercise this act is held by state government, not the federal government. Meaning what? The federal government decided, okay, now I have the act, right? How are you going to exercise this act? It's up to you now, state government, right? So most northern state government, they're anti-slavery, right? So if a slave owner approach, like a Pennsylvania governor, say, hey, my slave escaped to your territory, and by this act, you're supposed to help me to relocate my slaves. And the Pennsylvania government was sure, okay, we'll try, and come back in a week. And after a week, and then you come back and say, oh, I heard that your slave is now in Massachusetts. So it's out of my jurisdiction. I cannot help you anymore. So this Slave Act, Fugitive Slave Act, did not really help the Southern slave owners to, protect their property. But it's a gesture from the federal government to the South, saying that we recognize your right over your private property, your personal property. That makes sense? Okay, but really it's not effective, right? 7, Naval Act of 1794. So U.S. Navy established. Congratulations. Remember during the Revolutionary War, America did not have any Navy, and they built 4 warship, right? 3 did not work, 1 sank right away, right? So by 1794, with the help of friends, right? The technician guy came, engineer came to help America to establish their Navy, right? And then founded the first United States cabinet. So he set a lot of precedents, right? And the following presidents, they actually honor George Washington's system, right? So this is domestic policies. Now let's take a look of Washington's diplomats, okay, policy, the international policy. So 1793, he declared neutrality, all right? French Revolution, when it comes to 1792, it started this reign of terror, right? Jacobins, right? And started to target these anti-revolutionaries, right? And the famous guillotine, national razor, so busy, okay, claimed many innocent lives. So that time, if you show a slight sign that you kind of question or doubt this revolutionary course, then you will be reported as, anti-slavery revolutionary, okay? And then the punishment is what? Beheaded, right? So that's the reign of terror, all right? And then the Europeans, the united and have this alliance against France, right? And that's the time French people say, please help us out, right? But Washington decided to claim neutrality, right? And his neutrality proclamation towards French issue actually provoked the American public, because American public believe, how could we do such a thing to French? They help us when we needed them. It's time for us to return favor, right? But George Washington is thinking for the best interest for the country. But the general public just think based on moral standard, right? So this neutrality proclamation actually provoked the society. And America, First Amendment, right? To protect your freedom of speech, right? So that time, George Washington actually was criticized big time. The general public, okay, would use all these very negative words to describe George Washington. Washington was like, I did not even want to be your president. You asked me to be. Now you criticize me. All right. So Washington was very unhappy that time. Okay. So neutrality proclamation kind of established America's agenda. So John Adams, Thomas Jefferson later on. Okay. Even the